Hey, folks, we are back at it. Thank you very much for being here. I am Dale Jackson. I'm a radio talk show host, and you can hear my shows Monday through Friday, 5 to 9 a.m. on WVNN in Huntsville, Alabama, and then from 10 until noon in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I put out videos and other things all over my social media platforms. If you're following me on one now, thank you. If you're not, go ahead and do so, and I would greatly appreciate that. There is a lot to get into here about what's happening with Venezuela. And I got to tell you something. The American media is not covering themselves in glory, nor are most of our friends in the Democratic Party. Now, some would say that the media runs the Democratic Party. I would tend to agree with that. And I don't think this is a situation that makes them look very good at all. But let's start with a little bit of a history lesson. For most of these I'm going to show you, you're going to find that there are a bunch of things that these people claim they believe that now they don't seem to believe. And I understand the way the media reacts and has reacted in the past. They don't remember that we remember, or they don't care. I'm assuming it is that they don't remember. That's most likely the scenario that we're mostly dealing with here, is that they don't remember that what they've done before, or they don't think that we remember or will care. But some of us do actually care. You know, that face you see there is one Rachel Maddow, and boy, she had some thoughts. She really had some thoughts on Donald Trump, Maduro, and she'd rope in some other people on this as well. And you're going to find a lot of these guys have some interesting theories about how the world works, and I'm not sure they believe that they actually work the way they're suggesting they do, but either way, here's Rachel Maddow. This is in 2024. She had some very interesting thoughts about Maduro and Trump and others.
Not only admire each other's tactics, they copy each other's tactics. They support each other in doing those kinds of tactics whenever they can. And they support each other around the world. So Russia gives money to Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And Xi Jinping sends a love note to Kim Jong-un today on his country's birthday. But they are all led by rulers who are all interested in staying in power for life and making sure that the people of those countries never rise up against the strongman form of leadership that keeps them under the boot.
Man, she really thinks Maduro sucks, and she must really want to see him go. So she's got to be pretty happy. I mean, she's not, but you would think she might be.
I mean, they're all united. No matter what else you can say about how different they are, they're all united in wanting to do all they can to denigrate and discredit democracy everywhere it exists, particularly the United States of America, which should not and cannot serve as a beacon for the world to aspire to democratic change. They want no one anywhere to think it is possible, let alone desirable, to throw a strong man out.
Interesting. But we threw a strong man out, so you got to be psyched about this. Rachel Maddow's got to be pumped about this, and she's got to come to the table and be like, man, good job, Donald Trump. I may not like you, but at least I'm happy for you. And by the way, she's pretty close on what the actual issue is here. If you think about it, she's actually really close. All these people she mentioned, Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, maybe she didn't mention Iran, excuse me, but China, Russia, North Korea, all of them are avoiding American sanctions and helping Venezuela get around them to their own benefit. What we just did was disrupt that entire part of the business. You say, oh, it's about oil. It's about oil. Well, I mean, it's partially about oil. Let's be adults and be honest about it. Some people don't want to admit this. But it'll be interesting to see if Rachel Maddow can get on board here and say, okay, this is actually good.
In your heart of hearts, when you think about what the United States just did, I think there are very few Americans right now who have any idea why the United States did this. If this was about drug trafficking, then why did President Trump just pardon the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of sending hundreds of tons of drugs into the United States? If this was about...
I'll tell you why. Donald Trump thought that the sentence he received was ridiculous, and he thought that he could benefit geopolitically by allowing that individual to go away. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The federal government came after him. He assumed the federal government came after the individual they're referencing here. But you guys can keep going on and on about how he pardoned a drug trafficker and all these other things. Yeah, I don't like the pardon process either. I hate it. I think we should take it away from the president personally. That's just my thoughts. But what does that have to do with Maduro? So because Trump pardoned one drug trafficker, he has to let them all go? Well, I don't think that's true. And again, this isn't all about drug trafficking, and I think they all know that.
Something about the illegitimacy of Maduro's election. Well, that's something that the U.S. is, decrying any other country policing.
It's so funny. She's like kind of dismissing that when that was her entire point of her other video too. It's kind of funny about that.
Sanctioned Brazil for having tried to protect itself from a coup by its former president, Jair Bolsonaro. I mean, if it's about gangs, we had the president of El Salvador, who is believed by U.S. law enforcement to be very linked with the notorious gang MS-13, which has caused incredible damage in the hemisphere, including in the United States.
Is that true? Aren't we sending MS-13 back to Honduras? Isn't that sort of like the big problem here that a lot of you have? Isn't that sort of your issue? Like, Kilmar Bravo Garcia, he's in a MS-13 trying to send it back, and you guys freaked out about that. So I don't even understand that argument, but sure.
He's invited into the Oval Office, and the president says that he's looking forward to sending homegrown Americans to that president's essentially, jungle concentration camps. So all of the purported explanations for what's happened here don't stand up to logical scrutiny. The president has never articulated a coherent rationale for having done this. This seems like Marco Rubio's dream, not Donald Trump's dream.
Oh, okay. So Donald Trump's not getting what he wants. Marco Rubio's getting what he wants. I mean, I'm fine with that too. She's just upset that Donald Trump's the one that did this. You got to believe that if Joe Biden had done this or Kamala Harris had done this, they would have been incredibly ecstatic about this. Incredibly ecstatic. But this isn't just the media. You also have big name Democrats, Chris Murphy. The media loves having him on their program, and at least they're confronting him a little bit.
In 2019, you wrote an op-ed and you called for Maduro to be gone. You said, let's get one thing straight. There should no longer be any debate about Maduro's lack of democratic legitimacy. The Trump administration is right to put restoring Venezuelan democracy at the center of our approach to this crisis. A return to a stable democracy is in the interest of the Venezuelan people and the United States and the hemisphere. We don't know what's going to happen with regard to the civilian leadership there. Tom Cotton, which is here, saying that he hopes that there are democratic elections. Isn't that what you want?
Well, the rest of that article right, was a criticism of President Trump's early moves to saber rattle around regime change.
In 2019.
So I wanted that, but not in this way. Not with Donald Trump doing it. I wanted that to happen, but not this way, guys. Not this way. This isn't the way I wanted. I wanted it in some way, but at least they're confronting him. And there's all these clips of this guy talking about how this guy is a threat, and hilariously, even a threat to the border, which is true. But man, he just didn't want anything done about it, apparently.
So over the past decade, Nicolas Maduro, the brutal dictator of Venezuela, has presided over a stunning collapse of the Venezuelan economy that has caused nearly 8 million Venezuelans to leave that country, most of which destined for the United States. Part of the reason why we saw 10,000 people showing up at the border every day last year, a number that the United States just can't handle with current resources because of the meltdown of the Venezuelan economy. And so it's no surprise that in the election that was held this week, Maduro clearly lost. The briefings that I've received today suggest.
So hold on. So he is an illegitimate president. He stole an election, and his economic model, which a lot of Democrats would love to see, has crashed their economy, leading to a flood of illegal immigration into this country, which we cannot handle. But what Donald Trump is doing is illegitimate.
That Maduro not only lost, he probably lost in a landslide and is attempting as we speak to steal the election. If he's successful, not only will Venezuela continue to spiral into political and economic chaos, but you will see more people come to the southern border. Maduro is now in a corner. We're working with our allies and our partners in the region to try to force him to accept the results of this election.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, again, you guys are making pretty good arguments for why we did this. So what are you mad about it for? Like really, what are you upset about this for? I mean, that's really the thing. And again, you go back and you look at some of the things they said even earlier this year. It's all about dictators and how we need to do something about this. How we can't have these things happening around the globe. But this is bad.
Everyone who signs up to work for Donald Trump is signing up for one single project, and that is the transition of American democracy to a kind of kleptocratic oligarchy in which the billionaires rule, in which they get to steal from regular Americans. And if that's the domestic project, then the way that you normalize that kind of government is to associate yourself with similar governments abroad, like the Kremlin. So it's all part of one big domestic project. The foreign policy, the affection for dictatorships abroad is, in effect, a means towards transitioning our democracy to something very, very different, something we've never, ever seen before in this.
So this is part of the, and again, this is Maduro, or excuse me, this is Murphy in the past. He doesn't mention Maduro there, but he talks about an affinity for dictators and how we shouldn't have that. And now he's screaming about how it's wrong that we took out a dictator. And he's not the only one. There's a lot of people screaming about this. And you can go back and look at their previous words and then what they're saying now. Here's a perfect example. Look at Pete Buttigieg. He's talking about an illegitimate takeover of the Venezuelan National Assembly by Maduro. And he says, quote, "I stand behind Juan Guaido and the Venezuelan people as they strive to reclaim their democracy and defend their rights." That was from 2020. He does not support that now. He does not. He wants Maduro to be there. For example, here we are. It's an old and obvious pattern, he says. An unpopular president failing on the economy and losing his grip on power at home decides to launch a war for regime change abroad. The American people don't want to run, puts in quotes, run, a foreign country where our leaders fail to improve life in this one. Again, he can't come out and say, I'm against what happened in Venezuela. So, of course, he attacks Donald Trump for being the one who does it because they want it. They're fine with it. They're globalists. They have absolutely no problem with this. So they have to complain about it under the guise that Donald Trump is the villain for doing it. That's all this is. It's all it is. And you kind of feel bad for these guys because they are searching for an opportunity to actually make a difference here and get some points out and put some points on the board. They can't do it because they have to take the side of Maduro. So he's saying, don't go in there. Don't go in there. Our buddy, Chris Van Hollen, here he is in 2024, talking about how bad it is that we are looking at a dictator in Venezuela.
Well, we stand with the Venezuelan people who overwhelmingly, it turns out, voted for Gonzalez and against Maduro. This is why many of us called immediately for transparency, for the Maduro government regime to release the results. And there's a reason, Jose, that they hid those results, because we now know, because we've seen results that were released by some of the opposition figures from about 80% of the polling places, that Gonzalez has, won comfortably here. And so this is clearly an effort to deny the will of the people. Maduro lost, right? He is trying to cling on to this claim of legitimacy that he won when all the evidence shows otherwise. So this is why Secretary Blinken did, in my view, the right thing, recognizing the real winner here, Gonzalez. And this is why the United States is now going to use its levers and influence to push for a negotiation, to have a transition to the truly elected leader, Gonzalez. Now, obviously, we know Maduro and his cronies do not want to go quietly into the night, but the United States needs to work with our partners and allies in the region to ratchet up the pressure on behalf of the Venezuelan people.
Which nothing happened. All they did was talk about it on the news and take credit for it. Then when something actually happens, they claim they can't believe it, that it's the worst thing in the world. Because now when asked about it by Margaret Brennan, who is probably the worst host on television today. I mean, that says a lot. She's really bad. She's supposed to be straight news. That's probably part of the problem. The others are generally who they are. But here, I'm going to play the whole thing. This is a long thing, but the beginning is interesting.
We're going to talk to Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen, who is here in person.
Good to be with you, Margaret.
We'll not have those problems, we hope. But let's pick up on that very same point that we were discussing with Congressman Himes there. He says that no information was being shared with the top people who have oversight, like himself. What leverage do Democrats have to force the administration to treat Congress as a co-equal branch of government?
Okay, before we get started here, I remind people again, they don't have to tell them what they're doing beforehand. And really, they probably can't trust them to tell them what they're doing beforehand. All you have to do is look at how Congress operates, all the leaks we've seen and everything else. They're leaking ICE agents' locations. They're trying to crash border facilities. They're doing all sorts of things that are not in the interest of the American government or the American people. The White House does not have to tell them anything. Even the War Powers Act, which Marco Rubio today said that nobody views as constitutional. If that's the case, then maybe they should challenge it and get it blown up, which they have not done. But if they do believe it that way, then that's exactly what they should do. But either way, forget about what Marco Rubio said about the War Powers Act. War Powers Act makes it pretty clear that you don't have to tell them anything. You have to tell them within 48 hours afterwards, which they did. And then there was a vote where they said they wanted to kind of roll this back and not give them power to do anything in Venezuela, and that vote failed. So sort of the failure of that vote is affirmation that the power is there. We're going to take the power for you to do anything here. And then it fails. So you did not take the power. You failed to take the power, meaning the power exists.
Well, Margaret, it's hard when the Republicans in Congress are totally AWOL, right? When they want to give Donald Trump essentially a blank check because they continue to have majorities, of course, in the House and the Senate. Obviously, in 2026, if Democrats regain control of either house, we will have the gavel. But in the meantime, we need to...
They're not AWOL. This is a lie. They're AWOL. What do you mean? They support this action. They're not AWOL. They're actively saying they support it. They disagree with you. You don't have the votes to stop it. That's not them being AWOL. That's affirmation of the process. Because they're not doing what you want them to do is not being AWOL. If I don't stop someone from doing something, then I am for it. Do you understand? That's how the whole thing works. This is a lie. I don't know why they don't push back on that.
To go directly to the American people and just make it very clear that in this case, it's my view that the Trump administration's been lying to the American people. This has never been about stopping drugs from coming to the United States. We all support stopping drugs. This is the guy that went down and met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He went and met with them. With him, and demanded he be brought back to the country. This is not a scenario where this guy's just like an observer. He's actively participated by going and helping people who are bringing drugs into the country. Human trafficking, beating his wife, child pornography, all this stuff. He's on that side. So he's not a passive participant. He's an active participant in the problem. Beginning has been about getting rid of Maduro, grabbing Venezuela's oil for American oil companies and Trump's billionaire buddies. That's what this is about. That's why Donald Trump spent so much time yesterday talking about oil.
It is about oil. I don't understand why we're even pretending that that's not the case. It is about oil. And it should be. Venezuela nationalized their oil, punishing American companies in the past. That's what happened. I don't even care about that, honestly. What I would care more about is China, Russia, North Korea, subverting the sanctions process we have in place, which these guys allegedly support, in order to help the Venezuelan president stay in power, help the Russians wage a war in Ukraine, help the Chinese get oil that they were getting at a 30% discount. Notice they're not talking about this. It's a war for oil. No, there is an oil component to this. We're already the number one oil producer in the world. The issue here is that Venezuela is selling at a 30% discount to China, propping them up and doing it illegally against the sanctions we have in place that these people all support. The sanctions were failing, but they don't care. It's a war for oil. So Donald Trump's billionaire place. I mean, this didn't work in 2003 with Iraq. It's not going to work here. It knows we didn't take the oil in Iraq. There's a tweet out there, because there is, of course, one for everything, where Donald Trump says, I can't believe we left Iraq and didn't take the oil. I think we're going to benefit from this for a bunch of different reasons, and one of those is going to be oil prices. I think are going to come down. There are actually people who think oil prices will go up over this. I don't think that's the case. An American-friendly regime in Venezuela, you think that's going to drive up oil prices? I don't think so.
20 times the word oil was used in those remarks. The defense secretary spoke to my colleague, Tony DeCopel, and used the word oil about 6 times. There is a lot of focus on those natural resources, but arguably, isn't that what China, Russia, Iran, others are also trying to do, which is to extract their own benefit from this country?
Yes.
What is the counter to that point that the administration would argue?
Well, the counter is you don't invade a country to grab their natural resources, right?
Do you consider this an invasion, even though, although it's unclear, because
let's put
Senator
it this
Cotton
way.
both said there were boots on the ground and that there aren't.
Well, they had boots on the ground, right? They took out the leader, and now they're demanding access to Venezuela's oil. That's what this has been about.
It's just pathetic. She laid it out to him. She gave him an out. She helped him. She said to him, hey, as I said, this is what the other individuals who are exploiting this country to harm their citizens are doing so for the oil. We come in and stop them, and we're just supposed to sit back and do what? What are we supposed to let them continue violating sanctions? No, we're not going to do that. Not going to do that at all. These people are out of their minds. And it's not their fault. Their base is crazy too. Listen to this. This is a clip of people being asked, would you rather have Maduro or Trump?
Would you trade Trump for Maduro?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think Trump. I think Maduro was democratically elected.
Probably, yeah, sure.
More than likely, yes, of course.
If there's a Nicolas Maduro out here who's going to bring us to revolution, I will support that movement.
I would rather have a bus driver in charge than a billionaire, okay? Let's put it that way.
Nicolas Maduro could come and be our president?
Yeah.
Oh, any day. Any day. Look, all the check marks are there. He's not white. Okay, he's a minority. Okay. He looks a little too much like Saddam Hussein, though.
A lot of really smart stuff going on there. But yeah, they're fine with that. They're absolutely fine. Sure, bring Maduro in. Now, those guys are idiots, and of course, they should be mocked and laughed at, and that's fine to do that. But here's the last thing I'll show you. This is a protest. And in this protest, you see a bunch of white liberals standing around screaming, no blood for oil, get out of Venezuela, they support Maduro, they do all these things. White liberals, that's what they are. And you can see, I even searched for white liberals, and you get a bunch of these videos where you see all of this. And you can go through this if you want to. But I thought this one was the most interesting, because in Dallas, a bunch of Hispanics were out there going, yeah, we're for this. Freedom, democracy, bringing peace to Latin America? Sure, great, awesome. White liberals are furious about it.
God bless America! Texas #1, baby! God bless America! Don't touch me!
God, it's so pathetic. Hands off Venezuela, no blood for oil, all this stuff that they have been doing for years to no effect. Just keep that in mind. To no effect. They never win with this stuff. 2 weeks ago, they're out there in the parks everywhere suggesting that Donald Trump is a king and he must be stopped. He's a dictator who has to be stopped. And then here they are advocating for a dictator.
Venezuela. Hands up, please, stop touching me. Stop touching me. God bless America. Hands up, Venezuela. I'm walking away. God bless America. Hands up, Venezuela. Don't touch me, buddy. Don't touch me. You got that? He's touching me. God bless America.
I love the vest, too. I love it. They all wear these vests and act like they're press and all this other stuff. And it's just so stupid. They're cosplaying revolutionaries.
Venezuela's free! Venezuela's free! Thank you, Donald Trump! Thank you, President Trump! Thank you, President Trump! Thank you, President Trump! God bless America! God bless America! Bunch of fucking liberals. Get out of Texas! Get out of Texas! Fucking liberal! Get out of Texas! God bless America! Donald Trump! Free Venezuela!
Those people are so mad. It's awesome. It's actually awesome to see that all this is going on and these people are so upset about this because they just don't know what to do. They have no idea how to handle this kind of stuff because everything they see in their bubble tells them that they're right. Everything they see, everything they hear is that they are correct, that they are right, that they have figured this out, and that they are going to win. And sadly enough, or maybe good enough for all of us, right? I mean, maybe I'll put it a different way. Luckily for us, they're wrong. They're a small minority, not in the sense that the previous guy told us that he wanted minorities. That's, of course, not what we're talking about. But they are a minority of human beings in this country who believe that it's a good idea that we allow guys like Maduro to stay in power. And you're going to find this out, by the way. Just keep this in mind. As the polls come in and we see this stuff, I want you to remember, all these people out there screaming and yelling and doing all this stuff, these people, they're going to find themselves on the outside of this issue. They're going to find themselves on the outside of this issue, and they're going to find themselves without anywhere to go because they're going to find that most Americans are completely fine with this. War Powers Act. That's number one justification. And you'll notice the President of the United States has been referring to the government of Venezuela as narco-terrorist. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they were referring to them as narco-terrorists this entire time? You think that was for fun? No. It was because the authorization of use for military force signed September 14, 2001 is still in place. Meaning terrorist entities that are a threat to the United States can be dealt with. So that's it. I do laugh at the whole war powers thing, where they're saying, oh, well, you got to understand, we still haven't been briefed since the bombing of the boats has started, which is obviously not true. They had multiple briefings about that. They're going to try to figure out a way to make this an impeachable offense or any of this stuff. And again, yes, bring it on. Let's have that fight. Let's have that battle. Let's have that conversation. You're going to lose, and you deserve it. And I look forward to talking about it more. Thank you very much for being here. Toss me a follow or whatever happens on these sites you guys are all on. And we are doing this every single day this year, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Dale Jackson. You can hear my radio shows every single day and follow me on all social media platforms at The Dale Jackson. Talk to you soon.